and understanding that it's an art, not a science, that the numbers should, you said it really well, but like the numbers should be pushing you in the right direction, but you shouldn't be taking them as gospel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. We have Erik Huberman in the house today. I have been looking forward to this recording. As a marketer, big fan of Erik and everything that Hawke Media does with its clients, with its processes. I've had the opportunity to be on a panel recently with Erik and said I have to have you on the show. Erik, thanks for taking the time to join the pod today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And want to familiarize listeners with yourself, with Hawke. Where did it all start for you? What is your story, and how did you get into the world of marketing?
Yeah, I made fun of marketing majors in college and then graduated, went into real estate 1 week before the banking industry collapsed in 2008, and we did that for a year, but about 6 months in, realized this wasn't going to work and needed to move on, and ended up about 6 months in starting to work on an online, basically it was like masterclass for musicians on the music business in 2009. Was able to raise $1 million for it and that was my first digital business. Was able to launch this thing and grow it and spent 2 years growing it. And through that, started to learn that like the hard part of business is really, when you want to grow, is finding new customers and doing it in a profitable way. And so, with that, I was really scrappy about it. And I used like Craigslist hacks and all sorts of things to build that business. But then after that, I built and sold a t-shirt subscription company. It was one of the first e-com subscription businesses called Swag of the Month. And that's where I had to start learning like input output, like where can I spend money on Google, or what can I do to like drive customer acquisition in a profitable way. And I just was doing it, not knowing any of these terms. And then after I sold that, I joined a company called Ellie. I helped start that, which was out of Science Incubator that just launched Dollar Shave Club. So I advised there for a little bit, helped build this activewear brand. And there I had a budget. I mean, we raised a seed round of $2 million and were able to like just go to town and build this up. And that's where I really got to fire on all cylinders and try all these different marketing initiatives and realize they worked, and really started to understand human behavior and how people buy and why these things work. And, frankly, got good at it. And then after about a year, we ended up selling that. And that's when I started advising and consulting for a bunch of brands on what I had done, trying to help them, and realized, oh, look, 99% of agencies have no idea what they're doing. And the few that are any good are really expensive, want long contracts, high minimums, something that makes them hard to work with. I'm just going to build a SWAT team that can help these guys out. And that's literally what led to this. And that, started building. And now almost a decade later and 200 people, and we've worked with 4,500 brands, built the venture fund, built the AI tool, wrote a book, had a TV show. It's been a fun ride.
Those are some substantial accolades. And, just to recap, we're going into the world of finance, decided marketing, launched the music platform, launched the swag platform, which was sold. You were able to raise capital, have multiple exits. We're advising on companies, realized most agencies suck, and wanted to build a model that was effective for growth because you understood the role that marketing plays towards entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
And into Hawke. 200 people, over 4,500 clients to date. That 1% of agencies, probably much higher than that. You probably know the data around it. What made it different than another marketing agency? What about your model really resonated with your clients for long-term partnership and overall performance for them to continue, for them to be able to see their own growth that substantiated the relationship?
Yeah, there were a few things. And I would say in the initial side, there wasn't another person like me that had built and sold e-com companies who were willing to help other people achieve that. I was aspirational to most of the companies I was working with. They're like, oh, you already built and sold this. Like, that's what we want to do. How do you do that? And I just showed them what I did, and the playbook worked. So that was the start of it. I was also super flexible. Everything was a la carte, everything month to month, like just made it really easy. So there was no barrier to entry. But over time, what I realized, and this is actually, it's funny, we're going through a rebrand exercise right now for the business because of this. It really became like we became the top company at mixing technology and marketing to really drive the maximized revenue growth. Like, how do we make things efficient and grow things in a way that leverages both marketing capabilities, marketing intelligence, marketing chops, so to speak, but also leverages all the technology out there. And that's why the venture fund came in and the AI tool came in. Was we never shied away from technology. In fact, the opposite. Like, thankfully, I was surrounded by a bunch of innovators at the time that were talking about how I was going to get disrupted as an agency. And I was like, well, why not just, partner? Why not just work with these companies and be a friend to them? And so we ended up being investors in Klaviyo and Postscript and Tapcart and Faring and Superfiliate and Return Mates and all these, big parts of the sort of e-com and Shopify tech stack that allowed us to be a bigger partner and a bigger player and more robust than any of our competitors. Because it's like, you want to, oh, we need email marketing. Well, what email service provider are you on? Klaviyo. No shit. We were their first partner ever, and we're one of their investors. Who else are you talking to? Because guaranteed none of them can say that. And so that has allowed us to continue to build just more capabilities, more expertise, because we have such a close relationship with all this that we look at marketing as like the creative's really important, the messaging, the individual, like we have to have great marketers, but technology is quickly making that more and more and more robust. And we leaned into that a decade ago. And so it's just that combination is really sort of a category definer that we've created that we frankly hadn't articulated as much until more recently.
Sure. Sure. I want to talk to you about the venture fund, but focusing on the vendors for a
Yeah.
moment. You guys have done a standout job of building partnerships. Like you said, first partner with Klaviyo, the list goes on. You go to your site, there's a whole catalog of different platforms that you work with.
Yep.
What does that selection process look like internally to identify these groups beyond investment? And for listeners, how important is it for them to choose the right organizations to work with their own marketing stack?
Yeah. So what we look at, I mean, it's just, ease of use and ability to execute is so important that our team is bombarded with tools all the time. And if it's not solving a problem, we're not interested. And so that's a really important part is we get approached by, I get many emails a day. We'd love to talk to your clients about our solution. It's like, but that's not a problem. So it's not a solution. Like we have no issues there. So it's like, this is part of the issue is I watch a lot of people build softwares that are nice to haves, but they don't really solve a pain point that's really a big pain point. So they're not going to get me to do any work to try to figure this out. So, I watch, it's kind of AI is a really good example of this. I have friends that seem to have these lists of, the 150 AI tools they've used for all these different things. And when I look at these lists, I'm like, how much time do you have on your hands? Like, what are you doing? Like, why did you go? Why is this even put together? Like, how did you find the time to go spend this? And like, I'll pick a few things on there that I use because I do think AI is going to be compelling, but like, I think there's a lot of companies that end up with a few users that are just like early adopters that just want to use every new tool. And then when you get to the mass adoption and sort of the traction side of it, no one really cares. And so for us, we have a great test for that, which is our team's busy. So when we introduce a new tool, unless it's quickly solving a problem for them, they don't care at all. And so how do I put it? Like, so that's really the first litmus test is like, do you guys want to use this? Does this look compelling to you? If they go, yeah, this is awesome. Well, that's an easy test. If they don't have anything to do with it, moving on. And so that's an important part too.
Yeah, I've seen groups invest weeks, months into integration of a software. And then instead of fully embracing it, they're already looking at other ones. And you're right. I don't know who has the time to put together these whole lists and try this out and try that out. They're tools. You have to be as effective as possible with them. And it's good to build the best practices. And I think that's why that question is so important and why you guys have done such an amazing job at building these in-depth relationships and ultimately providing exclusive abilities to your clients as a result with these different groups.
Yep. It's a critical part.
And, moving on to the venture side of it, it seemed like there was a point in 2020 where every type of company was putting together a fund with it. What has been the utility of the fund of Hawke Ventures, and what is the long-term growth there? Why has it been such an important piece of the puzzle?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of how do I put it? It's an ecosystem play in the sense of we already are good partners. Like we've already helped build some amazing software companies as a partner where they just become a part of our sales organization. Klaviyo is a good example of that, like and Postscript, where when we sign someone for email marketing or SMS and they ask us what to use, generally we're going to refer them to those. And so why not financially benefit from the fact that we're juicing these companies? So that's one piece. The other piece is skin in the game the other way, where now that we're an investor, when we go to those companies to be a better partner the other way, where like we have recommendations on the platform or we want them to send us leads, all those kind of things, being an investor goes a long way there too. and it's really this self-fulfilling prophecy. We have thankfully an engine now. We manage marketing for 500 brands. We can be a decision maker for them in the softwares they use, and why not benefit from that and be an actual partner and help dictate the products so that they actually do what we need them to do to solve things for our clients as well. So it all goes in together in that way.
And definitely looks good. Like you said, working with these partnerships, being able to show, hey, we care about the growth of this space. We want to be at the forefront of it. That's why we're taking a position in these organizations. And you're at the forefront of marketing, let alone the Santa Monica, Los Angeles community, entrepreneurship, large brands alike. You've been able to document thought leadership and your own processes, the Hawke Method, I believe it's called, in your book. What was the process of writing the book? What were you trying to get across to readers, for those who have not had the chance to dive in yet? And how does that live in the day-to-day across those 500 accounts and 200 team members?
Yeah, the book was actually pretty easy to write. Marketing in it was a nice, thing to accomplish. But basically, I was taught that if you dictate on Zoom, or dictate in general, it's about 30 minutes per chapter. And I wasn't reinventing the wheel. I was writing a book on things I already knew. So I basically wrote an outline on the 15 chapters I wanted to be in, some bullet points. And then I just went on Zoom and recorded the chapters one at a time for 30 minutes. So 15 chapters, 7.5 hours. And then I had it transcribed by someone, edited by I had my writing partner edit it, then I edited it, then our publisher had it edited, and we're good to go. We had a book. So what's cool is the way we did it, it forced the book to be in my voice. And so like when you read it, if you know me, it sounds like me talking. And so it came out very conversational, it came out very easy to read, and it came out very straightforward because I speak on this stuff all the time. So, where the topic came from was, at the time we wrote the book, 3,000 different brands and auditing them, and the probably 30,000 brands we had looked at to get to the 3,000 brands we actually grew, and all the different things we saw them missing, and how it really came down to 3 pillars of marketing that kind of, covered where companies would be able to triage their marketing and figure out where they're missing and where they need to double down on and create more opportunity. And so, putting that all together, I already had all the content from years of doing this. And I just had to, put an outline together, dictate it, and then boom, we had a book. And then again, the work came in when I was launching it and marketing it, because we wanted to get a bestseller, which we did, but that was a lot of work.
How long was the marketing campaign to launch the book?
It was a few months. We probably put 6 months of work into it. But it was also like at a time when it was beginning of last year when we launched it. And it was a time when the economy's slowing, businesses, changing a little bit. And now I'm on the road, on radio shows at 5 a.m. and TV shows. And we were on the Drew Barrymore show and Adam Carolla and all this stuff. Like balancing that with running a business, like that was a lot. Like I didn't realize how much of a full-time job that could be.
And congratulations on the bestseller. I could authentically recommend the Hawke Method for all viewers and listeners. And I'm always impressed by who else is talking about the book and referring to it as a must-have for any marketer or founder. So, Erik, you make that sound easy, by the way. 30 minutes, 15 chapters.
Yeah, sincerely writing. I mean, if you write a book about something inherently and like you have the knowledge of, which by the way, don't write a book about something you're not familiar with and knowledgeable about. I can give that advice, but if you're doing it that way, then yeah, it really isn't that hard. Like people have asked, do I have a second book in me? And I, for a while, said no, because like I was burnt out after launching that book. Like the marketing aspect of it was a lot. But now that I look at it, it's like I might if I don't care about how well it does, because the sales side of it, the marketing side of it was a beast to get that out there. And it was expensive because I went with, by the way, no publisher is going to market your book for you. It's not like we had a big list of people to market it to. Like we had our customer list and our lead list at Hawke Media, but like we hadn't built a following of, book readers. And it turns out it is really, really hard to sell a book. So it took a lot, and thankfully we succeeded. But I'm not Michelle Obama. Like it's not like everybody wants to read the memoirs of Erik Huberman. I'm not there. Maybe I'll get there someday. But so getting the volume that you need to sell a marketing book, like that was a feat in and of itself. But again, to write the book, not that hard.
Sure. And again, it seems like a standout. So many people that I've met over the years have put out a book, and it does, in all fairness, very low volumes of sales. Like you said, you're a
Yep.
bestseller. I hear it mentioned on stage when you're presenting, and you'll have that forever to be able to point at.
Yep.
Like how you broke down the three pillars as well too. I find people can remember three things very well, where marketing can sound so complex, and
Yep.
to be able to break it down in a way that's easily consumable and repeatable, a founder can talk about it with their team afterwards. I think is very difficult to do. So although you make it sound simplistic, I think that alone is a very big deal.
Yep. And that's exactly what we're going for.
Now, what's the difference from marketing a big brand uh, in contrast to a startup? Because 500 brands, I'm sure you guys work across the entire spectrum. I know you work with some of the largest companies in the world, and with flexible terms, and using your playbook that you've launched e-commerce brands with, are able to really service brands of all sizes. As a marketer, you look at these top companies, and I'm from the world of mobile advertising. I've had my experience with Fortune 500s, but just to remove the curtain, lift up the hood a little bit. What are the biggest differentiators that you see from working one of the largest companies, brands that people cherish and love, to a virtually unknown business?
What differentiates those two?
Yeah,
Um, I mean, honestly, if you want to talk about the largest brands that people know and love, it's time. Like I think everyone is impatient these days and wants to make it happen fast. But like the biggest brands we've worked with have been around for 50 years, and like there's legacy in there. There's kids that grew up with these brands that are now adults that have their own kids. There's a lot that goes into like really a long-standing brand with like decades of experience. And I don't mean experience like people have worked with them for decades. I also just mean like the people have experienced the brand for decades. Like and I see that as a big part. Like we talk about it with a lot of the fashion companies we work with. Like sometimes there's no replacement for just time. Like as much as you want to rush it and throw Facebook ads at it and like, Meta ads and TikTok ads or whatever you're doing and just try to juice it and get to a certain scale. I get that. And I think there is a place for that. But in terms of building a long-standing brand, a lot of times it's just being there. Like you start to become part of the conversation. People start to think about you as that, like your go-to. And that's why you see these companies grow and grow and grow and grow, maybe not linearly, but over the long period of time, there's a trend line there because you start building off of this sort of brand foundation that you're able to build that takes time. Um, the and then, the typical stuff in terms of big company versus small company, like small companies can move faster, they're more nimble, so they're able to adopt new technologies, new things faster. A lot of times they can be more efficient. A lot of times they're paying attention to being more efficient. So you have these big companies, like the amount of large consumer brands that don't have an email marketing or SMS strategy is absurd. And I'm talking
wow.
about multi-billion-dollar companies that don't have their own CRM. And it's happened several times that I've looked at these, and it's like they just don't get it because they haven't needed to, and things move really slowly because you don't want to sacrifice what's working and that bread and butter. So a lot of big CPG brands, as an example, they're built to be the wholesaler into retail, and it's the store's responsibility to get customers, not theirs. And so they do these big marketing campaigns to make sure that they're chosen over something else on the shelf, but they're not keeping track. They don't even get the opportunity to keep track of their customers, but they don't want to start doing D2C or start, recording themselves because that's a different business. Could that alienate their current partners? Blah, 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 blah. And so you end up in this place where it's, there's a conflict there, et cetera. Whereas a small company, it's just how do we make money and how do we grow this thing? And so you get the benefit of that with these scrappy small companies. That's why you get a Shein or whatever from China, or like these companies that come out of nowhere and are multi-billion-dollar brands because they can jump onto these new technology and things and take over in a certain way that the bigger brands move too slowly. The other side, though, is that happens one in every many thousand brands. Whereas these longer standing bigger guys, they also don't necessarily need to jump on the hype because they have so much momentum that it's going to take a long time for that momentum to give. So they can wait and see. They can see if TikTok becomes a good platform and then get into it. Like they don't have to be the first mover on all this stuff because they are who they are. And so that's kind of the balance I've seen there.
Sure. I think it's a great message for smaller brands as well too, to have that patience, time in the market, timing the market versus time in the market. Even just looking at time of year, look at the longer, bigger picture. and let the analytics direct where you need to go accordingly. Uh, as we're speaking about that as well too, why do bigger brands work with agencies? This is a fun question that I like to ask with agency owners. What is the contract? What is the reason to go outside of the in-house and bring in an external agency? These large brands could hire as many people as they want. What are the benefits to them?
Yeah, it's a bunch of things. I would say the biggest benefit is, and I don't think most agencies actually provide this, and it's an issue, but the biggest benefit I would say is that forest from the trees approach, where you get the benefit of what the agency is seeing.
Mm.
So that, you've got a group of people that are looking at many, many different companies all the time, strategically, watching what's working and not across a litany of brands, and are able to understand how the market's moving. And like, that's why we built Hawke AI. We have 8,000 companies, marketing, media, and revenue data running through it in real time, so that we can actually know how the market's moving. And an individual company doesn't. They don't see, like, when there's a glitch on Facebook, they don't know how to adapt to it. When there's an algorithm change, they're scrambling, where we're immediately on the phone with Facebook and knowing how to fix it. So that's the difference between, not, that's what I see as the biggest benefit. And then it's the flexibility of like, hey, we need to ramp this up. Like, they don't want to go hire a bunch of full-time employees to ramp up on their end. Let someone else do it that can do it. And then I'd say, on that same note, our business is recruiting and building and supporting and developing great marketers. No, their business is not, unless we're talking about a marketing agency. Now, they want to recruit people and they want good marketers, but the idea that you can train, develop, and support a marketer better than I can in almost any business is obviously a fallacy. Like, that's literally what my business is about. It's what I spend tens of millions of dollars a year on, and you don't. So you're able to get access to that platform and that capability for way cheaper than you could do it yourself. And so the downside of doing it all with an agency, like, it is good to have some people that are fully dedicated to the brand on certain things. But I think for like advertising and media buying, for certain aspects of marketing, and then depending on what core competencies you can actually develop, it always makes sense to have an agency, which is why every big company has an agency. That outside perspective, that ability to develop and attract talent, that ability to be flexible and nimble with the needs of the company, like, those are key things that I just sat in a room with like 50 CMOs about this, and those were the things that kept coming up.
Like you said, some of the biggest brands in the world don't have email and SMS dialed yet. They're
Yeah.
slow to move. Being able to bring on an agency gives them that nimble type of balance. And it's an echo chamber. You're just thinking about your own ideas all the time. Why not bring in the experts who are working on a volume of these campaigns, over 500, to show what's working, maybe even in another vertical, to the same users, to the same audiences, but to be able to bring in that playbook on what's delivering in real time. I find this to be such a big topic when it comes to traffic channels, attribution. I know we've talked about a while back pixel tracking and some different ad platforms, and it's created issues over the past 2 years or
It
so.
created issues with tracking, which before the rise of digital wasn't even a thing. So like, to me, you have to kind of shift the way you look at marketing and how you track it. But I think honestly, the tracking was so overdone. I think a lot of people are cutting off their nose to spite their face.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing now, is so many people that don't have a concept of marketing. And again, I really do believe 99% of agencies are just terrible at what they do. They're still stuck on trying to read the Facebook dashboard as to how their marketing's performing. And by the way, it's completely misreporting. And
Yes.
people know that, but they're still reading it and still using that. And it's just like, it's ridiculous at this point, but I think it's going to weed out the good and the bad.
We'll explain how less than 5% of mobile iOS users are opting in to allow Facebook to track them off app. Combined with desktop, Android, maybe you're hitting 30%, and those conversions are showing up on the Pixel. And then have discussions with that same brand on how they need to be projecting higher volumes of conversions based on what they're seeing on the dashboard. And then looking at third-party analytics, looking at different traffic, making sense of it. I found analytics even before the iOS 14.5 and earlier updates were storytelling at best. They were not concrete at that point, and it was a matter of making sense of it. And as an agency, and I imagine you agree, it's not about vanity metrics as much as data-driven decisions. We want to be able to tell, hey, what can we move where next week you're going to see better performance, next month,
Right.
next year, and we're able to build on that versus brag about a 10x return on ad spend or
Yeah, which
something that could even be misleading.
well, exactly. Like, let's take a 10x return on ad spend. If I want to shut off all your new prospecting and just do retargeting, I'll get you a 30x return on ad spend, no problem. And I'll brag about it and I'll post a fucking slide on Facebook. Look what I'm doing for my clients. Like, I hate when marketers do that because there's a few things that bug me about it. Once, it's just a lie. Number two, the people that are buying into it are the lowest common denominator. What these marketers don't realize is like, you're only convincing people that are not savvy. They're the
Yeah.
worst type of clients. They're the worst type of customers. Those businesses are never going to grow because all you're doing is screwing people and lying to them, and people that are buying into it are just getting screwed. So it's like, it's crazy to me that, and you're right, vanity metrics are a problem in marketing, but thankfully there's enough savvy ones out there that get this stuff, and understanding that it's an art, not a science. That the numbers should, you said it really well, but like the numbers should be pushing you in the right direction, but you shouldn't be taking them as gospel.
Mm-hmm. And always looking towards the next thing. We've had to put so much work in over the past couple of years to show the pixel analytics, the analytics outside of that, being able to make sense of it, and have the trust with the client, have that relationship in play.
Yep.
When they have all the background in their head of the bad agency stories, but to be able to show, no, we're focused on these next goals. Here's where we're going. Where do you think the industry is going as a whole? What is the future of analytics and pixel tracking, or even just the future of
I
marketing?
mean, the pixel tracking thing, like, it seems that Apple and soon Google are trying to get rid of JavaScript pixels, meaning cookies, because they want to own their own version. And
Right.
so it'll be this weird battle. Like, let's be real, it has nothing to do with privacy. They're trying to figure out some other way to track you that isn't that. So don't buy into that BS either. Apple just wants to own their own version of the cookie, and so does Google, so that they have more power. That is what they're trying to do. And so some point they'll figure it out. There'll be a new way to do it. The thing I always like, these changes never scare me at all because it's a level playing field. It's not like my competitors or some other marketer is going to have access to this and I'm not.
Right.
So whatever's going to change is like, we're all going to just adopt. It's kind of similar to like when the economy changes or the market changes or COVID or whatever these are, you just have to learn to adapt and like, just know that change is constant. And so you don't have to, and anticipating it can be actually a problem because a lot of people tried to anticipate with COVID. We had clients, 25% of our clients when COVID hit, cut off their marketing in anticipation of a bad economy. What ended up happening in digital? It tripled. So all those people, those 25% of our clients that cut off, a lot of them aren't even here anymore. But the other ones, it's the 75% that stuck with it, skyrocketed. So it's like, don't anticipate, just look at the data, look at the numbers, make decisions. And when the cookie goes away, do what you need to do, whatever the new thing is, because there's going to be a new thing. And if there's nothing, then it's still an equal playing field because you're marketing like everyone else, blind. And that's just going to be the way you have to operate in that world. So like, it's just, to me, again, it's not really something to be nervous about. It's just to pay attention to for when the actual time hits, figuring out what the option is. So you have to be able to make quick decisions, because I think trying to anticipate it so that you don't have to make quick decisions, I think, is where you get led astray, versus like when it actually happens, looking at the landscape and understanding it and going, oh, that's our option. That's important.
I love how you said that. And I define good marketing as good problem solving abilities, because the performance is not, a constant in our experience. I would love to ask how you train on that, but just to share on that story real quick, we had a similar experience in March 2020, and we do a lot of investor acquisition, investor marketing, and had no clue what was going to happen with the public markets. And after that pullback, saw many new clients sign on, the growth of equity crowdfunding later that year, digital assets and cryptocurrency, other type of fintech platforms we were working with, all surged, and that would not have been our projections mid-March.
Imagine trying to anticipate that in March and like making no, you just got to wait and see what's happening. Be like, let's go. Like, look for the opportunity and then go for it.
And that ability to manage to a point of effectiveness based on what's occurring, and having a close watch on competitors and their marketing, doing a regular competitor marketing audit. How do you guys train for those problem solving abilities? You have a great perspective and outlook towards it. How do you get your 200 team members to have a similar type of viewpoint?
I don't know if you can teach problem solving. I think you have to have someone that are the type of person you need to have is someone that's inherently curious. I think is the important part, because that in marketing, I think that's what drives it. It's like, well, why? Well, why? like, why, hey, our, returns are down 20%. Why? Oh, well, it looks like your click-through rate dropped 20%. Why? Well, we changed the ad copy. To what? Oh, well, so is this why? Like, it's like getting down to the root cause. And I don't know that I think you just need to have people that are curious and that enjoy. It also takes someone that inherently enjoys it, because if they're just doing it for a job, they don't want to dive in that deep. But if they're really like into it, you're kind of naturally going to be curious about this stuff. And so I think with that type of personality, which is part of what we try to hire for, that
Sure.
then brings in the person that's going to be that problem solver, because they want to know why. They want to understand this stuff. They want to dive into it. They want to have the answer. And so that, I think that just comes inherently. I don't think you really train for that. What you do train for is, click-through rates are down 10, 20%. Well, what would drive that? That's where you can teach people. Like, what would drive a click-through rate to drop? Well, these are the different categories. Let's look at those, that kind of thing.
Sure. Sure. Now, how did you select your service offerings at Hawke? At a quick glance of your site, I believe you have about 9. Going from outsourced CMO to branding, web, photo. I'll categorize as creative. You have content marketing and social, as well as advertising, affiliate, life cycle marketing, and I am curious on how that's been selected, and really for listeners, for viewers, how you recommend those for their own campaigns.
Yeah, I would say it's an amalgamation of the services and the types of marketing that are the most scalable, predictable, executable parts that together
Nice.
drive the most effect on consistent revenue growth. So things that we don't do, like experiential and events or PR currently, where we haven't found the right type of execution that's predictable and scalable that we can rely on. And I think that 90% of your marketing needs to be that. Needs to be something that you can consistently grow the business so that you can actually forecast and understand what's coming and make decisions on the future. And those are the marketing pieces. So like, we would see like, we didn't originally do websites, but we'd be driving ads to websites, we'd be driving, email marketing, and then the website would be crap. And I'd say, okay, well, we didn't build it, but we need them to fix it. And after a while, I was like, screw it, we're just going to do websites now too, because we need that to be a working piece. So it was really like, what are we relying on to execute? What do we want to own our destiny? And that was part of it.
And the conversion rate's the most important metric. And you guys have obviously put very strong numbers on the board for your clients. Looking at case studies, the volume of groups you've worked with to date, and with flexible terms, that is amplified. What you guys are doing in terms of performance. Speaking to that and some of the channels and to the title of the show, what recommendations would you have for listeners, for viewers, towards their own marketing? I look at it as a series of tests. You need the data to show you what's working, as discussed. What should they be testing towards their own model? Would it start with the site and the environment that's designed for conversion? Would it be more around traffic or the mid-funnel touch points? What
That's
tests do you
where
recommend for founders?
So two things. One, you can use Hawke AI because that'll just plug into everything and go, here's where you're missing the benchmarks. So that's super easy. We have
Nice.
a one-time audit on there. And then two, that's where the Hawke method comes in. Like, where do you think you're missing? Are you creating it's awareness, nurturing, and trust? Like, what aren't you doing enough of? And how, where are you falling short there? But knowing the benchmarks is really important, which is, again, goes back to why you want an agency, is you want to know what is success and failure. What does that look like?
Absolutely. You could have the blinders on without it. I like how
Yeah.
you broke down the 3 categories: awareness, nurturing, and trust, and being able to determine what channels, what tactics in each of those channels, the messaging that you're using for each, being able to manage it to a point of effectiveness. Not all marketing works right out of the gate. I would say most of it does not. Even the campaigns that do, it's difficult to continue to keep it there. What recommendations do you have towards optimization and being able to either find the pockets, performance, and optimize towards those, or especially if it's not working right out of the gate, what to pivot to be able to get it to a positive level of return?
Yeah, I would say the optimization piece, you have to be careful to be focusing on where you actually can move the needle. Like, I see people that are running, $100,000 a month businesses trying to optimize their conversion rate by 1%. I don't mean 1 to 2%. I mean 1 to 1.01%. And it's like, you're just drove an extra $1,000. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop. And so it's understanding where you can actually move the needle on that, because a lot of times that incremental piece is not going to be where you move the needle. It's going to be actual bigger moves. And so I think optimization is super important and ongoing, and you need to make sure that you're focusing on the right things to move the needle the most, like the best use of your time, frankly. And because I see people spend tens of thousands of dollars in man hours to get $1,000 in revenue. That doesn't make any sense.
Sure, sure. I could see it if it's setting up for scale, but if it's just for
Yeah.
that,
Right.
marginal gain. I mean, we
Yep.
work with campaigns that it's their first approach towards digital, and they're looking to build an audience while have some of that audience convert into investment. And
Yep.
we need to look at it in an accelerated fashion to optimize towards, inside any channel, audience, creative funnel that they're going down, and setting
Yep.
up the tests for success. So I think you're absolutely right. You need to know what you're playing for, have the goals in mind, be able to make sure the juice is worth the squeeze there. Uh, Absolutely.
Yep. Totally agree.
Now, you've worked on massive campaigns. Do you have any tips? Do you have any examples towards scale for listeners? Maybe one of the campaigns you've seen scale the most over the years. What made that uh, see the levels of accomplishment that it did? And
Yep.
once you have it optimized to a good point, how can you take it to higher levels?
So this is a answer everyone's going to hate, but the first thing is you need a great product or service. Like at
Yep.
the end of the day, like you can't market your way out of a shitty product. Like that's number one. The campaigns I've seen are things that people love. Like that's the first thing. Second thing, firing on all cylinders. Like this is something that I think we went through, like, and not think, I know we went through an era where like you could run some Facebook ads, drive some revenue, and like that could be build your business, but there was nothing long standing or scalable about that or predictable. It was just like you could get a quick bump and then you'd end up on this hamster wheel of Facebook ads. But like the companies that like set up all their marketing channels correctly, really hone in on their brand and do tons of other things to build the brand and to like build a culture around it, that's where you're going to get the best success. It's like, and the list is long in that sense, where you're building experiential side, you're building great PR. Liquid Death is a good example of this. Like they have the day-to-day marketing and advertising, but they also have ridiculous activations and all these other partnerships and all this brand work that's turned them into the fastest growing beverage brand, I think, if in the past couple of years, if not in history. Like there's some crazy stat on them. And because they built a fun brand on top of a great product, on top of doing all the basics and all the scalable marketing as well.
I'm a big Liquid Death fan. I'm
Oh yeah.
cheering inside my head as you're bringing them up.
Nice.
I have some friends in the snowboard industry that turned me on to them early. Also,
Nice.
some musicians that I follow, and yeah, their marketing is definitely a standout. And looking at their valuation, the way they've grown, beyond category, massive, massive growth. What a perfect example.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
can't get enough of their messaging either. They've really worded things well on the can and all areas of their marketing.
Yep.
But that ability to take it to scale, uh, and for agency owners, what about scale towards their growth? Because you guys are obviously at the forefront of agency growth. You probably know the stats even better than I do. But in terms of volume of clients, I mean, it's a feat that few agencies will ever accomplish. Even big four, holding company agencies don't take on the volumes you guys do. What would have been the key attributable points towards your scale?
Um, I'd say a few things. One is just in again, not the most silver bullet answer, but like do good work and be good people. Like reputation is everything. And the nice thing is, like every business. So it turns out I think it's like 3 or 4% of our society are sociopaths, like statistically. So like when you have a business of our scale, we work with 4,500 brands. We've worked with a lot of sociopaths, and like there are people out there that absolutely hate us. That we have I think like 8 bad reviews on Google or whatever the number is, and that will turn people off sometimes. But like the nice thing is we've done so much great work for so many people that when you get that one naysayer out there saying, oh, they suck, you got a bunch of other people going, are you nuts? Like look at what they've done. Like it's you have to, because you're always going to have people that are naysayers. You're always going to have those bad reviews. Like anyone that has a solid 5 stars across the board is lying. They hacked something, they cheated something. Like it's just not a thing. You're going, like that's just how things go. And so building a good reputation is really, really, really hard. But if you do it, it's really, really powerful. So the number one is just taking care of people, doing the right thing, being fair, doing good work. Like that's number one. And then I would say another part of our secret sauce was, for the first many years, my business partner handled the day to day so I could go out and grow the thing. And so I was just, out hustling all the time, meeting people, grinding, building so that I could, uh, I could get to a point where we were at a scale where we could hire people and build a sales team and build all these things. But for first 3.5 years, it was just really me. And I drove a lot of business into this business and turned it into a real business by myself because I didn't have to do all the other stuff.
Reputation, grinding, all on top of a good model,
Yep.
good people, doing good work. I'm going to remember that sociopath stat. We certainly come across it, and I see, all businesses and how you resolve those situations. Like you said, just be a good person through it, make sure it's all smooth because that reputation continues. I also think that's an incredible success record with only those amount of reviews and about negative reviews. And like you said, you have your community, your team hopping in and talking about all the great work there. And that you were able to build the right team and build on top of it and on top of it on top of it. I know we created the agency that we wanted to work with, and for us, the core values were be easy to work with, communicate early, and answer with algorithms. And I hear a lot of the same practices. Can tell you, you are looked at as a thought leader in the marketing agency world, and on behalf of agency owners, I can say we definitely follow your footsteps and want to make sure we're putting out good work, good growth. So appreciate you going into detail on some of these recommendations for agency owners in additional to brands today.
Of course.
And as we begin to wrap up, I know you have a demanding schedule. I go to a good amount of events. It seems like your global destinations are that much more extensive. What final thoughts do you want to leave listeners with today? And where is the best way for them to get in contact with Hawke and get more information?
Yeah, I mean, HawkeMedia.com, you can sign up for a free audit anytime. Happy to help. And then I'm just @Erik Huberman on every social channel. As far as what I'd want to leave with, I would say, as we talk about all this marketing stuff, I think the most important thing is to really focus on building something sustainable and scalable. I say this over and over again, but I'm going to re-emphasize it. There is a huge propensity in marketing to chase the shiny object and to jump into the next new thing. And from my experience, it's not that important. What's important is figuring out what's working now. Because again, if you have a good product or service and you get in front of people, it should inherently sell. And so really finding ways that you can continue to grow the business in a scalable way is how you're going to build a long-term successful brand, because it's all about, the long haul. And if you're thinking about it that way versus how do we get some quick success, you're going to build something that's more successful, frankly. So I would say, again, it's about predictable scalability and not chasing the shiny object. Super important.
Predictable scalability in a very direct fashion, find what's working for you, the key drivers, and do a lot more of it.
Yep, exactly.
You heard it here. Well, Erik, I want to thank you for taking the time to hop on this podcast. I've had a blast. I know listeners, viewers are going to get a lot out of it as well. So I want to let you know we appreciate the time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We will see you next time. Take care.